Going to get into the first caller here, and this is going to be Rummy Cat from CLP. What's going on? You are up first, sir. Hello. You got a hand for us?
Yeah.
All right.
It was a week ago. I was at the Shark Tank in Columbus, Ohio. It was a poker club.
Okay.
It was a 2-5 game. It was about $1,100 effective with the button. About $600 effective with the big blind. We were seven-handed. I think somebody was walking, so we were seven-handed.
Okay. So seven-handed. Yep.
Yep. I opened low jack with 6 of spades, 5 of spades to $20.
Okay.
The button, small blind, and big blind all call.
Button, small blind, and big blind call. Just a 2-blind setup, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of rare these days. It's kind of funny. Like I'm probably going to go to Encore tomorrow, as I'm sure you're aware. As I was talking about how I love to play in that mixed game up at Chasers in New Hampshire, but it's turned to all PLO. So obviously I got content, no limit content for the site. So I'm kind of forced to go to Encore and play 2-5 because it's the only thing that goes on during the day. Another 2-blind setup. But I just feel like more and more games are sort of going to 3-blind setups. Maybe not at the smaller stakes, but definitely some you see it at 2-5 and then 5-10 and above. I think it's kind of
this
rare
was the
straight.
must-move table, so they weren't straddling very often. When I got to the main table, it was everybody straddled, so it was 2-5-10.
Yeah, there you go.
And,
so 4 ways, including yourself. Pot's like 80. Okay.
Yeah. So the flop is the 5 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 4 of clubs.
5 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 4 of clubs. So you raise 5-6 suited in the low jack. Or in the hijack, I'm not sure what you said, to 20, and you flop trips against the button, small blind, and big blind.
Yes.
Okay.
The blinds check. I bet 30.
Okay.
The button calls. The small blind folds. And the big blind is an action player. He's been fun at the tables, bought back in at least once.
Okay.
He raised this to 125.
So he check raises to 125.
Yes.
Okay. So you see bet 30 into 80. Button calls next to act. Small blind folds. Big blind, who is a somewhat of an action player, goes to 125. You're 600 effective with him, but the button and you both have 1100. Just as just kind of a quick note, I just want to ask, like, in general in this game, are you betting most of your overpairs here in the spot, say 3-handed on 5-5-4?
I would probably base it on whether, like, if I had aces, if I had the ace of clubs, I would probably check the ace of clubs. If I didn't, I'd probably bet, depending on who raised me or what they did, would still call. Like the big blind, I'm probably not folding much.
Depends on the player.
Yeah. And the button is a reg, and he's tight, and him I might fold against.
Yeah, and just for a little bit of sort of theoretical background, usually the hand that doesn't need any protection, right? The best overpair is aces. Then with the ace of clubs, what it allows you to do if you check it is you can call across a lot of club turns anyways. Like, you don't get blown off of future equity. And then it means someone doesn't have the nut flush draw that can call you anyway. So, and then obviously as you go down, if you check jacks, if you check tens, you're just sort of giving away some free cards, right? To where you can't get value. So, I mean, one of the small stakes exploits, Crush That Poker, is you should be doing a fair amount of, you should be betting with a higher volume of, I would say, overpairs on boards that tend to favor field callers. This isn't even necessarily the best example of that because 5-5-4, I mean, it's not like 7-8-9. And the reason why that is, of course, is because the theory says is that you're not really supposed to be doing a lot of bet folding on flops for value. Like the hands that you don't want to bet call are supposed to be checked. But if you can sort of like put into like a player profile, like a little live node locking, as we talked about, that means like kind of saying that we in a solver, we're going to say this opponent's going to do this. If people aren't really raising with like worse than one pair and they're calling with worse, then you can see why betting a lot would be the best play to win the most money in live poker. I mean, try to simplify it as much as possible. Obviously, here you have a 5, right?
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just I'm just saying for for that type of thing. So this guy's an action player. He check raises to 125. Obviously, like, you have a couple of options, right? There's 2 clubs out there. So you could call, you could raise, right? But you do have a guy behind you, and you probably are going to call with like all your overpairs and probably all your club draws. So if you wanted to play balance, like sort of in that facet, then fine. Although I will say that, like, if the guy behind you wasn't in there, like, you could just sort of fast play this off a lot too, even heads up. It's just so rare to see somebody check raise fold. Not that I think that the guy behind you necessarily has you beat, but I mean, I would probably call here for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I did. I called. And then the button back raises.
Back raises, huh?
Yeah.
To what?
I think in the email I put it as 375. With things that went down, it shocked me so much that I don't think I heard what they actually said the raise was. It was big. What went down after the hand, it was something that was said. It was at least $500 actually, but
so you think it's 375? Before we
it was at least that.
Yeah, at least that. So just before we go on to what happens here, it was funny. Last time I was doing Hustler commentary a couple weeks ago, I was talking about there were several instances of back raising pre-flop, and people in the chat were like, "You're the only one that says back raise." And I'm like, I did not invent the term back raise. Back raise, and I think it's important if you remember that hand with Bill. Who's the wealthy older guy that plays on all the? Why can't I remember his last name? Bill Klein. Like, he back raised 5-bet pocket jacks on Live at the Bike, like, from several years ago, and got the Asian guy Jackie to fold king king. I'll always remember that. A back raise is when you call a bet and then re-raise a raise. So and it can happen pre-flop, right? It can happen post-flop. This is an example, right? He called your bet. There was a raise, and now he's re-raising the raise, right? Yes. So that's a really, really strong play. The only thing that I would say is that I have actually made this play against the pre-flop raiser before, and it's not in this particular example where, like, the pre-flop raisers bet and then he called, but there are spots, like, on these boards where I have seen pre-flop raisers check raise, like with overpairs on boards like this, and you they don't have really trips, although it's possible that you do, right? Like if it was a tight configuration, so you can put them like in a world of horde. I'll give you an example. Like if I was the button here and I'd flatted with like 6-7, and say that somebody in your spot who is not the pre-flop raiser bet and I called, and then the guy in the blind who was the pre-flop raiser check raised. I could back raise the pre-flop raiser, and does he really want to play for stacks with like an overpair? The reason why I'm bringing that up is because I look at this as a similar kind of situation where this guy could be making a play on you, especially if the big blind was somewhat of an action player. Now, is this guy thinking at that level? I don't know. So did the big blind now fold?
The big blind folded.
Okay, so the big blind folded. Okay, so the big blind folds. So now the pot is like whatever, he raised to 375. So, I mean, you put in 30, it went call. So what, 140, 265? Is it like somewhere around 600, like 250 for you to call? And then you guys have what, like like a pot size bet left? Something like that? If you were to call the 375?
Yeah, it'd be what, 250, 375, 625 plus the original, about $700 with,
Yeah. I'm not sure how much you caught of what I had said, because I know you broke up where I was saying that there was a possibility this guy could make a move on you because it looks like you have an overpair. I mean, there might be some guys that I might fold here too, but if I were, put it this way, if I decide to continue, which I probably would a lot, it's probably call, I think is probably the play. I don't know if a guy who back raises here is going to shut down even in position with like a club draw. Maybe. What's funny is that if I'm the button and I back raise you and you don't release to my back raise, and let's say I had a combo draw and I whiffed the turn, I would check behind. I don't think you're folding. You know what I mean? But a lot of guys will do that. Now, on the flip side to that, if he does have that big of a hand, then you could just get it in now. That is if you decide that your hand is good. Now, obviously, your kicker is one of the worst ones, right? So, again, I think it's really going to depend on if I think the button is actually capable of making a play here.
I didn't think he was that capable.
Okay.
He was.
If you don't think he's that capable,
tight.
you could find a pretty sick fold here, you know?
Yeah, like the only other real hand that I interacted with this guy, I opened ace jack suited. He 3-bet me from the small blind. I called.
Yeah.
Flop came out really ragged, jack high, rainbow. He checked. I bet like 1/3 pot, and he just folded. So
did you fold? Did you fold?
I folded.
Did you get a reveal?
No, but the some stuff went down after the hand. The big blind wanted to see the run out.
Okay.
And the button started to throw a fit and saying, "No, he can't see it."
Did a 5 come? Did a 5 come at the end or something?
The big blind tipped the dealer $2, and the button continued to protest. So the dealer slid him the cards face down and let him peek. I didn't peek.
Okay.
The button was so upset about it, he continued complaining to the point that the dealer just had to call the floor over, and the floor basically told the button to pound sand.
Told the button to pound sand. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a private poker club. If they want to tip the dealer to see the run out, they're going to do that. That's just what they do there.
So did the big blind tell you what the run out was?
I never asked.
You never asked?
I didn't. I know later after the button left, there was a pretty good player that was watching that hand and said it was a good fold. He'd seen him make that move a number of times, and the reason I'm pretty sure that the raise was bigger is because part of his complaint is he said, if he wants to see the run out, he needed to pay the $500. So he raised it big. He was basically going for the big blind stack, is I think what he was doing. So I think he flatted the button to try and get the big blind in, and then was going for his stack. It's a cute dog.
I've made folds like that before, and also like flop flushes I've folded like that before too. I think that's like akin to that because like you're drawing basically very, very slim, if not dead. In this case, it's a little bit better, right? But if you flopped a smaller flush, you're drawing dead, right? So
right, yeah.
So, anyways. Appreciate the call.
So unfortunately, I didn't get a reveal. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Appreciate the call. Thank you very much.